A young woman has a terrifying experience when she has a close encounter of the third trimester kind. And then we take a look at the terrifying story of a young man living in a haunted house. A house that hungers for more human souls. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. So first off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, everyone get on your feet and give it up for SK Groovin 915. Woohoo, yeah, we guys grooving on into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. SK Groovin 915 made a donation during our Thanksgiving live stream special, and that is why he is going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the Patreon or the merch store, I totally understand. I really do. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Okay, SK, you ready to get started? We're just going to pause until he answers, until he sends me an email saying yes. SK Groovin, I'm going to go ahead and toss you the oars to the rabbit rowboat. Everyone climb on board as SK Groovin rows us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command all the way out to a house in Anywhere, USA. Oh, splash. Oh, splash. Oh, splash. Rowing us all the way out there to this house. We don't know exactly where this location is. I found this story on thinkaboutitdocs.com, a little bit of a clue as to what type of story it is. Also, I said in the beginning it was a close encounter story. It's aliens. Can you believe that? I know some people like aliens, right? It's so funny because I go to these ghost conventions. I personally find aliens pretty off-putting. I see them as very antithetical to human life. But, you know, I go to these conferences and people are like, no, we want to meet them. I mean, like, it's the same thing. Listen, I know people don't like it when I say stuff like this. I'm not a fan of pit bulls. I'm not a fan of a lot of dogs. Honestly, I'll put that episode in the show notes, but I know people say, no, pit bulls are cool, man. It's just how they're raised. It's not their genetics. It's not their bloodline. It's not the fact that they've been genetically engineered to lock onto a target and never let go. No, I mean, listen, yeah, sure. And you can also raise a chimpanzee and it will be able to be on television shows. But for the most part, the chimp's going to rip your face off. I mean, listen, I just don't like pit bulls, right? I don't like dogs that are built for combat. So, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah, I get distracted talking about dogs. You're like, Jason, I think you have a dog hang up. Dogs always die in the stories on the show. I love animals and I love dogs. But listen, if I was walking down the street and I saw a baby pit bull with a broken leg in the gutter, yes, I'd take care of it because it has a broken leg. It can't really attack me. But, no, I just don't. I think they're bad dogs. I lose half my Patreons. I didn't know most of you guys are into dog fighting. You're like, they're the best dog in the ring. I know some people really love pit bulls, and I understand that. Some people really love pet chimpanzees. I don't want a pet chimpanzee near me either. Or a pet alligator or a boa constrictor or anything like that. I don't think that pit bulls are evil, but I rate them on that level. I won't come over to your house if you have an anaconda in your wall. I might. If your wall's made of glass and I can see it, I might. But my point is that I get it. Most people who have pit bulls, the pit bulls are fine. A lot, I shouldn't say most, but a good amount of them, probably 50-50. I just don't want to interact with them in any way. And that's kind of the way I view aliens as well. I think there's so many stories of them being threatening, specifically talking about gray aliens, really. But you also have the reptilians and the insectoids, which are also very threatening species to humanity. I don't want to meet an alien. Okay, I would meet an alien, right? If someone goes, hey, there's an alien in this closet. You want to meet him? I probably would. It'd probably be a closet full of pit bulls. It's finally your revenge against me. But, okay, here's the thing. I would meet an alien in, like, a neutral location. Like, if we were at a military base. I'd talk to the alien. But I don't want to run into one in my house. I don't want to be driving down the road, have a bunch of gray aliens show up, because they are threats to humanity. But in the paranormal world, that is not the normal view. And when I say paranormal world, like paranormal researchers, people who believe in aliens and are going towards disclosure, they're never like, we need disclosure so we can be prepared to fight them. Think about it, right? All the disclosure meetings, all the books we see, all the documentaries, it's not that the gray aliens or this alien present is a threat. It's the fact that they might be able to help us. And the reason why it's being kept from us is because the powers that be don't want us to get the assistance of aliens. I'm the odd man out. I would like the government to admit what they know. I am for that part of disclosure, sure. But I don't think they're good guys. I don't think they're good guys. But it's very interesting because all the other UFO researchers I know totally disagree with me. But this story might change their mind. Decades worth of research may all be changed in this one story. We're about to meet this young woman. This was reported on thinkaboutitdocs.com. So we do have real names, which is always nice for these type of stories. We don't have locations, but this took place on February 1st, 1997. It was 1 a.m. We're about to meet this young woman named Claudia Fuentes. She's sleeping at home. Her sister shares a bedroom with her. I don't know the ages of these participants either, but I'm assuming young, right? Adults don't normally share bedrooms with their siblings. I'm not for sure. But anyways, Claudia and her sister are asleep in this room when all of a sudden, a warm gust of air fills the room. And that wakes up Claudia's sister. Such a powerful gust of air. It kind of startled her, and she wakes up, and then she looks over at Claudia and notices that the gust of air also woke up Claudia. But instead of simply sitting up in bed and going, hey, isn't that weird? What was that big gust of wind from? It was warm. I don't know what else you would talk about. I feel like, yeah, I felt it too. I'm going back to sleep. It's not that mysterious. But what is mysterious is the sister's expecting Claudia, because she sees Claudia wake up. She expects Claudia to go, oh, what was that warm gust of air? But Claudia doesn't say that. Claudia gets up out of bed and walks out of the room. And the sister's like, what? Claudia, where are you going? Claudia either doesn't hear her sister or doesn't really care. She is walking through the house now, not like in a trance, but she doesn't know why she's walking or where she's going. And Claudia walks through the house and then opens the door and steps outside. But instead of being greeted by the cool or possibly warm air, 1 a.m., depending on where you're at, it could be warm, desert. But it doesn't say she's in the desert. The temperature of the air doesn't matter. I guess I'm still kind of hung up on that warm gust of air. But anyways, Claudia steps out of the house into the cold or warm night air. Well, that's what she expects to happen. But that's not what happens. You're like, wait, what? Is it cold or hot? I don't know. No. It's neither. Because she goes to step outside of her house, and instead of being greeted by the great outdoors, she finds herself staring down a long hallway. Her door led to this structure that had never been there before. And she finds herself walking down the hallway, when all of a sudden she becomes flanked by these humanoids. These aliens that she described as having long arms, wrinkled mouths, and 4 fingers on each hand. So not typical gray aliens, because the first thing you would describe if you saw a gray alien would be the size of its head. So she doesn't mention how big the head is. So when these are probably pretty close to human, except for the wrinkled mouths, I imagine it's like a Charlie Brown mouth, just a little squiggly line, and then the long arms and the 4 fingers. But she, again, is not startled in this moment at all. She's just kind of walking down this hallway. Now she's flanked by these humanoids, and they end up taking her into a place that she described as a hospital-like setting. Probably some medical beds, maybe those big lights that hang overhead that the doctor can move to get a better look down your throat. Maybe a cabinet full of stuff, medical stuff. You ever go through those cabinets? Usually I'll go through my doctor's stuff when they leave the room. Why not, right? I open up those cabinets, and there's just a bunch of notepads and, like, tongue depressors and stuff like that. But nothing super. I'm assuming if I did it on this story, I'd probably find some really... I'm like, oh, cool, laser gun. This is awesome. This doctor's rad. Anyways, she's in this hospital-like setting. She's walking around, and the aliens take off her pants. Now, technically, it says in the story they took off her bottom half. But I don't think they actually, like, removed her torso. Although they are aliens, that would be possible. But I also don't know what most girls wear to bed. Are they wearing underwear? Are they wearing pants? Not jeans, but, like, pajama pants. A dress, maybe? I don't know. Do girls wear dresses? They're like, oh, the petticoat ball is finally over. Now it's time for me to go to sleep in this 30-pound dress. Her bottom half. They removed the bottom half of her clothing. So use your imagination. But whatever article of clothing you decide to give her, she doesn't have it on anymore. She's now nude from the waist down, and the aliens are staring directly in. Like, Jason, not this again. Yesterday you went on and on about how sloppy wet a horse uterus is, which I don't know how wet they are. But it's something I did not want to Google because I really don't want to know. But these aliens are not thinking about horse eggs. These aliens are thinking about Claudia's reproductive system. And she's laying down on this bed now, like a medical bed. And the aliens get ready to do what they brought her here for. In fact, once the aliens kind of start looking down at her nether regions, she knows why she's there. But they're going to remove the baby inside of her. But Claudia's not pregnant. Claudia is not pregnant, but she kind of just knows, oh, they're here to take the baby out. And sure enough, that's what's going on. An alien reaches into her, and I don't know if they use their hands or some sort of medical device. Both would be equally disturbing and violating. One would probably be more sanitized, right? If they had this stainless steel thing that looked like an egg beater that opened and closed, that had a little mouth on the end of it, and you stuck it in there and pulled the baby out. I mean, it's still horrifying. Aliens are taking out your child, which she didn't even have. But at this point, she goes, oh, I have a kid in me, and the aliens are here for it. But then imagine just... No, we're not going to imagine it, so don't finish the sentence. Imagine an alien going elbow deep into you. No glove. Just slimy alien skin reaching up inside of you. Like elbow deep. Jason, don't these guys have long arms? I just thought of that too. I was like, oh yeah. I mean, that would be the hands all tickly in the back of her throat. However they pull it out, they pull it out. Maybe they use the device. Maybe they used a little elbow grease because they were up to their elbow. They had a lot of elbow grease, so they just reached on in there and pulled it out. But whatever the case, Claudia watches them pull out a fetus. They pull out this little tiny baby person and put it in a jar full of liquid. At that point, one of the humanoids takes the jar and leaves the room. And Claudia is still just laying here on this medical bed. What's interesting is, when you look at this narrative, Claudia says that she was there, and then eventually she was no longer in the hospital setting. I wonder what happened in that eventually moment. Did she just lay there for a couple minutes or even longer, and the aliens just left her alone in that room? And a period of time passed, and we don't know how long that was or what happened. I'm assuming nothing, because she doesn't say, and then they continue to do all these other procedures on me. She's kind of laying there for a while, and then she finds herself laying in the town square. She's laying out in the open in the middle of town in what she describes as a semi-conscious state. Her hair is dripping wet, and she's sobbing uncontrollably. Not out of sadness, but out of true fear. And people obviously hear this woman wailing, in the middle of town. They go to check on her, and there they find Claudia, just kind of doped out of her mind, wailing. There were people in the area who not necessarily were close enough to see it, but people did report that a flash of light came from the town square shortly before they heard the wailing of Claudia. I got this on thinkaboutitdocs.com. That's a huge UFO research depot. A lot of stuff is there, just decades and decades and decades of UFO stories. I love there. We go to there a lot. And it was taken from a story written by Scott Corrales. It was UFO Files #1. I'm assuming it was some sort of magazine from back in the day, because that's where they get a lot of these stories. Scott Corrales does continue to write paranormal stuff. I went to go look at, like, what's he writing now. A lot of his stuff gets added to collections. I have a couple of those collections. One of them is, like, How to Speak to the Space Aliens. There's another one I have, like, Sex and the Space Aliens. I don't know if he's in those two, but he has appeared in some of those books. One of them, most notable, is How to Build a Time Machine, which, it's called Plans for Time Machines That Really Work. It was published in 2012, and the reviews of the book are either, I thought there were going to be a bunch of funny reviews, like, oh, I read this book before I bought it, 5 stars. No, they're actually like, if you like stuff about time machines, buy this book, 5 stars, so that's not funny. That's a useful review. What's going on here? One person said that, they gave it 1 star. They said it was dangerous and inaccurate, because they bought the book on time travel, and then, like a dork, I wouldn't do this, but I guess I probably would have died. He goes, I got this book on time travel, and I know a friend who's an engineer, so I took the book to him to show him. I guess there's diagrams in it. This is a book available on Amazon. This isn't some weird text you have to go to Oxford Library to get. You can buy it on Amazon. It's like $20. But anyways, he says I showed my friend it, and the friend was looking at the book and goes, what? Like, this stuff would electrocute you. Like, all of this stuff, because it's plans on how to build a time machine. It says you don't even need fancy stuff. It goes, by going to Home Depot, you can build your own time machine. And so the guy takes it to his friend. He goes, no, this would kill you. I mean, yeah, you could build this. It won't send you back in time. It'll send you to the morgue. And so the guy gave it 1 star, and it said, this is inaccurate. It could kill people. I'll probably end up buying the book myself. I don't know how useful it's going to be. But it does say that, please note, this material is not meant to be used for unlawful or immoral purposes. I probably would use time travel. Part of it would be, Jason, what's up with the baby fetus? What happened with the fetus? Oh, well, let me time travel into the future and I'll tell you. Yeah, let me get back to the baby fetus thing. It's interesting. This is a typical alien story, the hybrid program that we see in a lot of these alien stories. Aliens splicing their DNA with humans, aliens raping humans, both male and female, to take our eggs or our sperm and create a hybrid race. This is real classic alien stuff. And again, it's not something you hear at a lot of the UFO conventions because they're raping people. You don't want to talk about that at a UFO convention. I've been to UFO conventions. They're a blast. I love them. They're out of this world. But you also have a bunch of kids walking around with balloons of aliens on them. There's a family event. You have people wearing shirts that have pictures of aliens, and the aliens are being like, I want you to be my friend. This is like family-friendly alien stuff. But then I'm a speaker at one of these events, and I walk up and I go, hey guys, hey, look at all those beautiful alien balloons out there. They're pretty cool. And that guy, look at that cool guy is dressed up as an alien. Let's give him a round of applause. Everyone's clapping. And I go, but now let's be a little serious about this. Aliens are raping people, right? Like that guy right over there, he's like, what? He's trying to take his suit off. I'm all attack him. He's an enemy to mankind. They are. They're very vicious. They're soulless entities. Now, I'm sure like the Nordics are fine. I'm sure there's some good ones. I'm sure that there's at least one or two very attractive, sexy reptilian female aliens who hear my podcast and go, well, maybe I can change him. Maybe I can show him we're not all bad. And then shoot your shot, princess. But, yeah, you don't really talk about the rape. You don't really talk about that at the UFO conventions. They definitely don't talk about that at Congress, right? Imagine when people are saying, we want disclosure, we want to know how many people are being raped yearly by aliens. And senators like, what? What was that? I thought we were just talking about ships we couldn't shoot down. No. Well, that's part of it, but these aliens are raping humans. And here we have an interesting story. She doesn't know she's pregnant, but she knows why they're there. She was probably abducted before and doesn't remember. Which right there is rape, right? If you kidnap someone against their will, inseminate them, and then wipe their memory, that's 100% the definition of rape. And the humanoid aliens that she saw, I think, were other hybrids. I think she was encountering other half-human, half-alien entities, because outside of the long arms, the four fingers, and the wrinkly mouths, they appeared to be human. So she was looking at other children that had been forcibly removed from humans. It's a creepy story, right? If you were Claudia, would you want to know the rest of that? Would you want to go, well, wait a second, I had this experience. How did I know I was pregnant? Because I wasn't pregnant. But they pulled something out of me. They pulled a fetus out of me and they put it in a jar of bubbling water, or boiling water is what the exact description was. But you would then have to assume, well, at an earlier time, you were raped by an alien and you don't remember it. And that is even scarier in a way, because then you go, how many times has this happened to Claudia? Before and since this event, it could still be ongoing. And it would make sense that they'd keep coming back to the same people over and over again, because there's something about their genetic code that matches. I'm sure a lot of hybrid pregnancies just don't take. The baby doesn't make it, because you're taking two different species. That's not even fair to say. They're from different planets. And trying to intermingle the DNA and using the woman's womb as an incubator to start it off, and then you pull it out and you can do whatever sci-fi stuff you want after that, but you let the woman carry it for a while, unbeknownst to her. I'm sure there's a lot of failures in such an intricate breeding program than there are successes. So I'm sure this has happened to Claudia over and over and over again. I don't think this was the first time it happened, and it most likely wasn't the last. So if you were Claudia, would you want to think this was some one-off experience that maybe was a dream? Or would you be willing to undergo hypnosis to see how many times this had happened to you? And to know for sure that that was true, you now know it's happened multiple times, that the child was removed from you, and you know what it is. It's one of those wrinkly-mouthed weirdos with long arms. A human-alien hybrid. Living out there somewhere, either on this planet or out in the stars. It's a child Claudia never gets to hold. A child Claudia never gets to love. Even with his long arms, I'm sure any mom would still give him a hug. I'm sure, right? I'm not a mom myself or a parent at all. But I'm sure if your baby had long arms, you wouldn't be like, gross. You might not say that out loud. You might think it. But then you'd come to love your baby. He has long arms and a wrinkly little mouth. And you'd be like, oh, this kid's pretty cool. Actually, you like basketball, son? Because guess what? You're going to play a lot of it. But Claudia doesn't even get that. Claudia doesn't even get to see her child or children. We don't know. SK Groovin 915, let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the world famous Carboner Copter. We are leaving behind Claudia. Hopefully everything's okay with her. I mean, that's a pretty traumatic experience. And it probably happened multiple times, which makes it multiples worse. SK Groovin, fly us away from Claudia. We're leaving her behind. Why don't you take us all the way out to a house in the suburbs? As we're flying out there, I want to do a really quick Dead Rabbit Radio recommends. I've watched so many good movies lately. And this one I just saw the other day. I tweeted about it and posted about it online because it was so bizarre, just the concept of it, and I tweeted mid-movie about it, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have been wondering all weekend how it was. So, I saw this movie randomly on Tubi called Protein, and here's the description of it. Quote, a gym-obsessed serial killer murders and eats a local drug dealer. That's not the whole thing. I mean, that in and of itself, you're like, what? Sounds fantastic. 5 stars. A gym-obsessed serial killer murders and eats a local drug dealer for their protein, inadvertently sparking a brutal and bloodthirsty turf war between rival gangs. How are you not going to at least start that movie? How can you pass on that description? The movie is shockingly good. It is so awesome. It is that is the description of it. But it's one of those, so it's a low-budget film. The acting is some of the best acting I've ever seen in a low-budget film, bar none. It is so good. All of these characters are multi-layered, very complicated people. And they're all dealing with the fact that one by one, they're getting eaten. But they don't know what's going on. It's fantastic. It almost reminded me of the show The Shield. Because you just have this complicated web and everyone's moving on 50% of the information. And nobody knows there's a gym-obsessed serial killer eating people. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was well made. I thought it was suspenseful. I didn't know what was going to happen next. The only gripe, I almost shut it off. Maybe 30 minutes into it. The only gripe I have about the movie, and it's a warning to you guys, is I watch a lot of movies on headsets, right? I have, headphones. So I'm not disturbing my neighbors. They're like, hey, the homeowners association really doesn't want you playing movies about cannibalistic gym goers at 3 a.m. Could you wear headphones? There's quite a lot of scenes, especially early on, they kind of taper off, of people eating, and whoever was the Foley artist, whoever did all the sound effects for this movie, really, really loves the sound of smacking lips, and it's really disgusting and off-putting. I mean, yeah, he is eating a human he just murdered, and that's bad enough, but when you have headphones on, you hear them. And sometimes those scenes will go on for like 3 or 4 minutes. I'm like, I get it. He's eating somebody. I get it. I don't have to hear it as well. But if you're looking for it's funny because it's a very down-to-earth crime drama. It's really the story of, I think it's from Wales. I think it's like a Welsh film. And you have these different gangs, and some of them are very small. It's just like a neighborhood group of buddies who kind of all came up together. And then you have like organized crime operating in the area as well. As a crime drama, it just works awesome. The acting is so good. The script is really good. And then throw in the horror element of a serial killer who just wanders into town and is eating people and does start a gang war. And these gangsters are honestly grieving. That's what I thought was so interesting about it. It wasn't like, they took one of ours, we'll take 2 of them. They eat 4 of ours, it's an all-you-can-eat buffet on them. Whenever they lost a member, they grieved that person. Like, you could tell the pain they went through, because they knew these guys growing up. It wasn't just some faceless mob movie. So you have the horror element, you have the crime drama, you have top-notch acting. I mean, it is so well acted. The script is tight. The production value is amazing. Dead Rabbit Radio recommends Protein. If you want to watch a movie that if someone goes, hey, what'd you watch last night? And you can go, well, how do you feel about a movie about a gym-going serial killer who needs extra protein? That almost feels like, yeah, that is what happened in the movie. And it does hang over every scene. But at the same time, you kind of get lost in the drama of it all. Dead Rabbit Radio recommends Protein. We're headed all the way out to this house in the suburbs. They're about to meet a young man. We don't have real names for this story. We'll call him Dylan. We'll call him Adam. And Dylan's really psyched about this. It's a big house. with a big basement and also a crawl space. And he's a videographer by trade. And it says that Dylan goes, oh, I could do some, like, cool shots. Like, I could use this place to shoot some of my movies. Probably protein, too. I don't know. I mean, it is definitely, if you're doing, like, a horror vibe, if you're doing, like, a spooky thing like Suicide Girls or whatever, a basement gives it a certain je ne sais quoi, but I guess I'm imagining it's a spooky basement. It may just be a big basement that he can make look like a professional studio. Dylan has a good friend, and we'll call him Todd, and they talk all the time on the phone. But something Todd has started to realize a couple weeks after Dylan moved in, the phone calls seem to be coming a little more frequently. And they always kind of addressed a certain subject. Dylan would call up Todd and they'd be talking a bit. And then Dylan goes, Todd, I don't know what it is, man, but I'm just having a really hard time right now. I feel like I just don't have energy to do things anymore. I feel like I'm really depressed. I'm really dealing with this depression, which is good to tell your friends that, right? So they know what's going on. It's nothing you should hide. So good that Dylan is telling him that, and it's good. Todd's a good friend, right? He's there to listen. But the phone calls do come more frequently, and more, Dylan keeps telling Todd how depressed he is. Which is new, right? This is a new thing for Dylan and Todd to be talking about. So when Dylan starts confiding in Todd, hey, listen, man, I don't even know how to deal with stuff anymore. Like, I might just be done with this. It might just be time for me to check out. Like, what? You like quitting the business? No. Like, I'm starting to have these suicidal thoughts. It's totally out of character for Dylan. And Todd is really confused by all of this. This is his good friend, and I mean, he's probably going through a rough patch, sure, but now he's talking about suicide, like really, really concerned. Todd's really, really concerned at this point. And Dylan recognizes it as well. He knows this is out of character for him. And that's why, again, it's good that he's telling a friend. He goes, I don't know where this is coming from, but I just can't shake this depression, and I just have these thoughts, and I'm afraid. I'm afraid that these thoughts might become urges, and these urges may become action. But again, Dylan doesn't know where any of this is coming from. Doesn't know what to do. Maybe this is natural at his age. Maybe this is natural at this stage in his career. It's just not natural for him up until this point. One day, Dylan was coming home. He's driving to his neighborhood, and he sees a bunch of ambulances outside of a house. Dylan's like, what? It's like in his neighborhood. It's nearby. So he's a little concerned, worried about what could be going on. Well, Dylan stops his car, and he gets out, and he's chatting with the neighbors. People are kind of standing around outside their house watching this. And Dylan goes, hey, dude, what happened over at that dude's house? What's going on? The neighbor goes, another suicide. Another suicide in this neighborhood. That's the second one we've had on this street. In fact, Dylan, I don't know if you know this. I know you're renting that house. I don't know what they told you, but that's where the first suicide was at. In your house. There was a guy who lived there before you who went down into the crawl space and shot himself. Dylan, at this point, doesn't have all the answers, but he's savvy enough to put two and two together and to understand if life was a horror movie, he needs to leave that house. If life is a spooky film, there's something in the home giving him these dark thoughts, these depressions, these suicidal visions. So he packed up his stuff and he left. He's like, I'm not staying there anymore. He moves out immediately. Now, whether or not he thought it was a ghost, whether or not he thought it was some sort of psychic energy, he doesn't say. He just knows the facts. He didn't feel this way before he moved into the house. A couple weeks later, he starts feeling that way. A previous guy killed himself there. Don't want to take any chances. Has to be something in that house. Might sound ridiculous, might sound like a ghost, but he's out. So he moves out. About a year later, Dylan, not living there anymore, he's at another place. And you should say this too, is he still depressed? No! I mean, outside of the normal depression any of us feel because we might not have enough money or we miss a loved one or something like that, there's a difference between that kind of depression and despair. Everyone kind of gets a little sad, gets a little happy, gets a little sad, gets a little happy. But it's kind of a baseline. He's not having the suicidal thoughts anymore. He's definitely not in that depression where he feels like he needs to reach out to Todd and tell him. But one day, Dylan's sitting there and he gets an email. Sitting there at his new home, he gets an email. And it says, "Sorry if this sounds weird, but I know you used to live at," and then they wrote the address of his previous residence. That house, the suicide house. I know this is the actual email. This is the actual quote from the email. Quote, "Sorry if this sounds weird, but I know you used to live at ... the address. I wanted to ask if you ever experienced anything supernatural there. My daughter, who's living there at this time, my daughter has become very depressed and keeps saying she sees a black figure standing at the end of her bed at night." Unquote. So Dylan never saw anything at that house. At least that he ever told anybody. He didn't know, is it supernatural? Is this a natural depression? But he's kind of, when he packed up everything and left, he kind of figured it's something with the house. I don't know exactly what it is. But the girl who's living there now is seeing the dark figure. And he goes, "I'm going to tell you," he emailed her back, right? Because obviously, I'll wait till tomorrow to email him back. I'm sure she'll be fine tonight in the suicide house. Dylan goes, "Here's the thing. There was a suicide at that home before I moved in. I didn't know about it. When I moved into that house, I started going through a really, really bad depression and I started having suicidal thoughts. I can't tell you what to do. I don't know if it's paranormal. I don't know anything like that, but I'll tell you what I did. I moved out. And I think your daughters should too." So the daughter moves out. And this house is just sitting there in the neighborhood. And at this point, word gets out in the neighborhood that house is haunted. And it's not just haunted by footsteps at night. It's not even just haunted by a figure watching you sleep, which is terrifying enough. It propels people who live there into a deep and dangerous depression. Word gets out in the neighborhood that house is haunted. The reputation in the area of this house is enough that people are like, no, it's cheap, but I've heard about that house. I don't want to live there. So the word gets out that this house is haunted. So the homeowner, Adam, he can't get anyone to rent it out. It's just sitting there. It's costing him money. So he decides, well, I'm going to move back into that home. It's not haunted. It's not dangerous. It's just this old fairy tale. And even if it is haunted, I don't have an option. I can't just be making payments on a house that nobody's living in. So Adam moves into that home. 1 year after Adam moved into that house, he killed himself in the crawl space. This story was posted online by Todd's wife. And she said, my husband had a friend who was a videographer, and she posted this story. It's a fascinating story. It's absolutely terrifying. You know how we were just talking about aliens being dangerous, but a lot of people say, let's at least hear them out. Maybe they're here to help us. The government's obviously hiding their existence, probably because they could help us, and humans want to control other humans. It's funny because ghost researchers do the same thing, but I would argue that every ghost hunter knows how dangerous the phenomenon can be. I'd say, and it's funny because next time I run into a couple of my buddies who are big UFO researchers, I kind of want to ask them, Like, how do you view these stories of negative alien interactions, of human mutilations, of sexually assaulting, raping humans? How do you view those? Because I have never met a ghost researcher who has ever said all ghosts are good. Never. There is a expectation of evil and violence when dealing with ghosts in the spirit world. It's something that we all think about. It's funny because now that I think about it, you don't get that in Bigfoot research either. It's always Bigfoot is kind of this gentle spirit animal, or spirit, like nature spirit, like he's incorporeal, like he's, what's the word? Incorporeal? You very rarely hear Bigfoot researchers talk about, well, the Squatch is a dangerous creature. Squatch has killed many, many people. Which, again, any Bigfoot story where the survivor comes back and says, oh, I saw him picking flowers, that's survivor bias. There could be an equal number. Probably not. But, Missing 411 originally was Bigfoot-centric. It wasn't this paranormal portal type of thing. It was mostly just Bigfoot killing people, whisking them away. Most Bigfoot researchers default to, oh, he's the gentle giant of nature. Most people who are into UFO disclosure are the aliens are more advanced than us and the government's hiding because they can cure all of our energy woes and cure all of our diseases and make our religious institutions and political institutions topple. That's why they're covering this up. Or that they just don't know what they are and what their motive is. That's another reason why they say the governments don't say anything, because they don't know what it is either. But most UFO research is outside of people who do like the Collins Elite, outside of people, I'll put that episode in the show notes, outside of people who talk about the conformers, put that episode in the show notes as well. Or reptilians, shape-shifting, taking over the planet, like David Icke. They do seem to take a beneficial tact towards aliens. Paranormal ghost researchers don't do that. We understand how dangerous these things can be. And this story is a case in point for that. It's just the house. If you, as a ghost researcher, heard that there was a haunted house in your town, most of us would want to go check it out and to investigate it. But you understand that this could be the outcome. It's interesting to think that this story doesn't really have a beginning or an end. That was the other thing I was thinking about when I was telling it. We have a guy kills himself in that house, in the crawl space. Then afterwards, we don't know what period of time it was, but afterwards, Dylan moves in. And I think Dylan might have been the first resident after the guy killed himself, but I don't know how many months or years or whatever passed. And a lot of times suicides don't get reported in the media, so you wouldn't know. People in the area would, when the ambulances show up. And then we had a second suicide in that neighborhood, but it wasn't at that house, it was on the same street. So you wonder, did whatever happened in this house, was it getting strong enough that it didn't matter whether or not you were there? Or was that second suicide simply unrelated? Well, eventually, and it doesn't seem like other people moved into this house. It seems like it was just Dylan and then this young woman. But out of those two experiences, the word got around in town that that house is haunted. People don't stay at that house long. People don't want to live there because it's haunted. So we have the suicide at the house. We have the suicide on the same street. You have to wonder, that first suicide, was that him killing himself? Making that decision, that horrible decision, the permanent decision to take your own life? And that is what powered this house, and there was something in the house now that wanted other people to join him, that wanted other people to take their own lives in that home? Or did the evil exist before the first suicide? We don't know. There could have been an evil brewing in that house for years or decades. And when that first dude moves in, I'm not saying it's the first guy who ever lived in the house, but the guy who was previously renting it, when he shot himself in the crawl space, that activated something, and that house was already evil and it wanted his soul as well. It's interesting to think about. It's terrifying and it's sad, but was the first suicide also inspired by dark forces there that existed before he moved in? Maybe even before the house was built, that land itself? Or was the house a totally normal house in a totally normal neighborhood on a total normal plot of land? And the first guy, when he killed himself, that was the spark. That was the moment the house turned dark. That was the moment when evil entered this home. We don't know. We don't know. I mean, you could argue, well, Jason, kind of a moot question. I mean, people who live there kill themselves. Does it matter if it started because one guy killed himself, or that the land, the area had always been energetically evil? It might matter. I mean, as sad as this is, and we'll wrap it up. I don't want to go on and on about this. Like, obviously, I'm spiraling out. I'm thinking of the worst possible scenarios. Imagine that you had a friend who killed themselves. I had a friend who killed himself. I think most of us know someone at this point who've taken their own life. It's a horrible, horrible thing. What if they didn't mean to do it? Would that make a difference? I mean, at the end of the day, they're dead either way. But, like, imagine that your uncle hangs himself and you're like, oh my God, why did Uncle Billy do that? Why did he do that? Oh, that's so tragic. And then you start to think about all the interactions you had with him lately, and you should have reached out to him more, and he didn't know he was so lonely. But then it turns out he had a fetish for autoerotic asphyxiation. So he liked to strangle himself as he masturbated. Now he doesn't feel... like, what? What? Now you don't feel so bad. I mean, listen, you loved Uncle Billy. He was a great guy. He was into some weird stuff. Sure. You always thought it was funny. He was always eating too much turkey at Thanksgiving. He's like, I'm choking. And instead of getting an Heimlich maneuver, he ran into the bathroom. It was a little weird. He'd be in there for probably about 5 minutes. He'd come out with a big smile on his face. Oh, Uncle Billy. But you wouldn't feel as bad. You'd go, oh, well, that's weird. But now I don't feel so bad that I didn't call him. Now I don't feel so bad that I didn't pick up the phone when I saw he was trying to get a hold of me the other day. I thought, well, maybe he was trying to reach out to someone before he killed himself. I was going to carry that with me for the rest of my life. I should have picked up that phone. But then he was just calling to see if he had any rope. He goes, hey, I'm kind of short on rope. And I have the weekend off. I'm hoping to have some good times. So if you have any rope, swing on by. No pun intended. He thought that was like a weird suicide noose joke. But then it just turned out he had a kink for cutting off blood flow to his brain. You would feel better about it. You're like, no, you wouldn't, Jason. You'd go, oh my God, that's horrifying. He didn't mean to die. That's even sadder. He died doing what he loved, though, so I would feel less bad about it. I know it sounds bad, but what I'm saying is it's... you're like, well, that's weird, Jason. The audio quality changed. Are you re-editing the ending? Because you did think that that sounded wrong? Yeah, I'm recording this a couple hours later. My point is that it's always tragic when a human loses their life. It's less tragic, like on a sliding scale, from less tragic to most tragic, I would say, accident. No, natural causes, but I guess it depends, right? Like, is it a good disease or a bad disease? Is it a long-term wasting disease? Or does your heart just stop? But because I gotta wrap this episode up, I was like, okay, let's do a sliding scale of how sad natural diseases are. Natural death is the least tragic death. You're like, Jason, or you could just not do this. Then accident, right? Wow. He was everything was fine. He had no natural diseases, but then a ladder fell on his head. which is quite the feat. You mean he fell off a ladder onto his head? No, a ladder actually fell on him. Least type of tragic death, natural, followed up by accidental, followed up by homicide, and then I think, personally, the most tragic is suicide. So what I was trying to say is that if you knew someone, you're like, oh man, wow, I was so sad when that dude died. But then I just found out he was brutally murdered. Oh, I was afraid he killed himself. It is less tragic. It's still tragic, but less tragic. So what I'm saying is that all of these families in this neighborhood who have had to deal with their loved ones dying and thinking it was suicide, that's even sadder than if they thought their family member was goaded into suicide due to a ghost or demon. But it's still sad. I mean, it's still sad either way. But that's what I was trying to say. So I did have to go in and do some editing about that. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. And then you wonder, the former owner of the house was the last person to kill himself in it. Then what happens to the house? Was the house sold? Was the house given like through a will to one of his relatives? Does it sit empty to this day? Or have other people moved into that house, not believing the stories of the neighbors, not believing the rumors? They decide to get a good deal on a house that's vacant. There's a couple suicides there, but I'm not superstitious, they might say. But they may want to reevaluate that position, because this house may hold a dark entity that remains forever hungry for another human soul. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys.